Matter in India's multilingual movement. India stands at an extraordinary crossroads with a linguistic landscape unmatched in scale and richness according to the 2011 census. India is home to more than 1,300 mother tongues and 121 constitutionally recognized languages. This diversity is not merely aesthetical, this diversity is not merely aesthetic, it is a national strength central to how children learn, grow, and understand the world. When a language disappears, we lose more than words, we lose a way of understanding the world built over generations. Safeguarding languages is therefore not only a cultural imperative, it is fundamentally a question of holding on to humanity's accumulated knowledge, which in turn makes it an educational issue. This is why mother tongue based multilingual education is critical. This is for quality education as we mark International Mother Tongue Day February 21 under the theme Youth Voices on Multilingual Education. The message is clear. Young people thrive when their languages and therefore their identities are recognized and valued in the classroom. When this happens, schools become spaces where children learn about themselves, others, and the world in all its diversity. UNESCO has long championed multilingual teaching based on the language best understood and spoken as a condition for quality education. Each year, UNESCO publishes the State of the Education report for India, focusing on a specific themes. This year, which is the seventh edition 2025, Bhasha Matters, Mother Tongue and Multilingual Education, brought together global research, new national evidence, and practical lessons to explore the state of mother tongue and multilingual education in India. The report demonstrates that MPB-MLE is not only pedagogically sound but also transformative. It outlines 10 policy recommendations to guide India towards a more inclusive and equitable education system that treats linguistic diversity as an asset rather than a challenge. It also highlights what is working from bilingual learning materials and teacher preparation to innovative digital solutions that bring multilingual resources to classrooms and communities. A barrier of language globally, over a quarter of billion learners lack access to education in a language they fully understand. In India, nearly 44% of children enter school speaking a language that is different from the medium of instruction. According to the National Council of Educational Research and Training in 2022, for these children, learning begins with the added burden of decoding an unfamiliar language before grasping academic concepts. Weak foundational literacy and numeracy can lead to cumulative learning gaps, reduced confidence, and ultimately a high risk of dropout. India has taken decisive steps to address this challenge. The National Education Policy 2020, followed by the National Curriculum Framework of 22-23, places the child's home or mother tongue at the center of early education. The Bhasha Matters report highlights promising examples in Odisha, a long-standing multilingual educational program Spain, 21 tribal languages across 17 districts supporting nearly 90,000 children. In Telangana, the use of digital infrastructure for knowledge sharing enabled multilingual resources demonstrates how digital tools can expand access to learning and material in local languages. National initiatives such as PM E-Vidya, Adi Vani, developed by National Consortium, Bhashini Bhash, based and intelligent node for inclusion in India and AI for arts, community-driven language technologies show how digital platforms and artificial intelligence can help document endangered languages, create local language content, and support teachers with multilingual resources. Building on these examples, Bhasha Matter sets out a practical roadmap. It calls for clear state-level language in education policies grounded in MTB, MLE, stronger teacher equipment and professional standards for multilingual classrooms and reforms in pre-service and in-service training to embed multilingual pedagogy. It emphasizes high-quality multilingual materials and assessments, community participation, and indigenous knowledge, gender responsive approaches, responsible investment in language technology, and sustainable finance. Crucially, it proposes a national mission for mother tongue-based multilingual education to coordinate action across ministry, research institutions, civil society, and technology partners, ensuring that providing pilots become systematic reform. Linguistic diversity is a driver. India's linguistic diversity is not a barrier to development. It is a powerful driver of equity, identity, and social cohesion. With states already policy framework in place, the country stands at the threshold of transformative educational change. This shift reflects a growing body of evidence. Children learn best when taught in a language they understand. On International Mother Tongue Day, the call is clear. Education systems must recognize and value every learner's language, not only to improve learning outcomes but also to affirm identity, well-being, and meaningful participation in society. When young people's voices are heard, multilingual education becomes more than a policy aspiration. It becomes a shared national movement. India's multilingual movement has arrived and its youth are helping to shape its future. Gen Z and the dynamics of democratic engagement. With its digital activism and episodic protest, this generation is emerging as a renewed source of hope in an authoritarian world. Democracies across the globe have been witnessing backsliding and counter narratives have not been too successful in arresting the Melsi. In the context, Generation Z or Gen Z was born roughly between 1997 and 2012 has emerged as a renewed source of hope at a time when many people had begun to resign themselves to authoritarian regimes and their unresponsive governance. Treatise for Federalism, the Kurian Joseph report must provoke a debate on reversing centralization. A high-level committee on union state relations appointed by government of Tamil Nadu has mapped the pattern of centralization of power and the weakening of federal democracy in India over the decades and suggested comprehensive corrective measures. The three-member of committee chaired by the former Supreme Court Judge Justice Kurian Joseph has drawn on scholarship across various disciplines, Constituent Assembly debates and the findings of three other committees on center-state relations while also viewing recent governance trends that weaken the authority of state. It concludes that centralization is increasing, which it notes is not healthy and calls for urgent remedial measures. The report is an expensive critique of the dilapidation of federalism, threatening India's progress and calls for changes to reverse the dangerous course, stating that Indian federalism now requires a structural reset comparable in aviation to the economic reforms in 1991. India's constitutional framework took shape against the backdrop of partition and the consolidation of princely states. The context encouraged the founders to tilt towards a centralizing constitutional scheme. Legislative, administrative, and judicial measures in the ensuing decades further reinforced this line of thinking. The report convincingly takes down the arguments for centralization and argues that federalized governance is essential for a country of India's size and diversity, and that it would in fact be dangerous to overlook this imperative. Manipur needs a healing touch that cuts the cycle of violence. Underdog stories how associate teams put the word in World Cup. In addition to making the tournament more global, USA, Italy, Nepal, Scotland, Canada, and Netherlands, Namibia, Oman, and UAE have produced competitive, sometimes magical cricket and T20 showpiece event. It is necessary to lend an era, to lend an ear to their challenges and address them to ensure that the momentum associate cricket has built up doesn't dissipate. It's not rocket science. If you play more cricket, you are going to get better. So all the associate nations are calling out for the same thing. World Cup, by its very nomenclature, implies the involvement of the world, a sporting spectacle that makes space for a wide array of countries with distinct customs, cuisines, quakes, and languages to converge in one location in pursuit of a shared dream. It is a concept that football comes closest to pulling off an um, quadrillion basis because of its universal spread and appeal. Cricket, on the other hand, waiting for 1,500 rupees. The Mukhyamantri Maji Ladki Bahin Yojana, Maji Ladki Bahin Yojana was rolled out ahead of the Maharashtra Assembly elections in mid 2024. It assured women between the ages of 21 and 65 monthly stipend of 1500 rupees and the first tranche of payouts were made after the Mahayuti government returned to power. It introduced mandatory eKYC verification, which led to the reduction in the number of eligible beneficiaries report. After several visits, my son asked me not to feel bitter and to give up on it. I still feel there has to be some resolution, but there is no helpline, nobody to guide me. Radhika Kamble, widow and mother of two, says. New IIT-M technique to accurately measure blood clotting time will help implant makers from Chennai. Researchers at the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras have secured a content Madras have secured a patent for a technique that uses stages in reflected light on the surface of implants to detect blood clot formation. While it will allow manufacturers to use this technique while researching and viability of materials to be used for implants, it also could also be used to test water purity, among other applications, the researchers claim. Improving clot testing, hemocompatibility is the ability of a material for medical device to interface with blood without inducing adverse reaction, including clotting. It is an important parameter to be considered before developing any material to fashion a device, including stents, heart valves, and catheter that will come into contact with blood. The hemo, hemocompatibility testing also helps to plan for the titrate the dose of coagulation medicine to be given to a patient post-surgery. This is where IITM researchers have stepped in to offer an optics-based solution to improve the accuracy of this test. Subhasri Misra, Govinda Chandra Behera, Vinas, Somnath Chandra described the technique in an article published in the Journal Review of the Scientific Instrument. When blood comes in contact with a foreign material, it begins to clot. When we plan to build implants, we need to check how much time blood is taking to clot over a foreign device. Despite several technological advancements in biomedical devices, issues related to thrombosis remain a persistent challenge. Explained MS Mishra, an IITM research scholar, the two techniques in use today, the mechanical, mechanical titling method and the pre-hemoglobin method are not precise, he said. We set out to address the shortcomings of the conventional technique to measure blood clotting, she added. Researchers use the optics to measure this blood clotting time. The surface of any implantable device will have a reflective surface. When blood touches this surface and the blood clotting process begins, the surface becomes curved and the reflectivity of the surface will change. When it does, it will trigger a change in voltage in a connected, highly sensitive photo detector. MS Misra said, adding that the time taken for this voltage change corresponds to clotting time. The results from our study were accurate and mile, even milliseconds are counted, she added. We received the patent for this technique last year. IITM Physics Professor Dr. Roy said, we are at the initial stage of discussions with manufacturers. This will enable them to quantitatively screen materials for blood compatibility at the research stage. It can help them distinguish between materials that may be similar but behave very different during cloud formation and have the potential to significantly reduce cloud-related risk for patients. He added, wider application. The team is also looking at deploying the technique for other real-world applications. Dr. Roy said, primarily to gauge the purity of water with a substrate. A few changes, it will be able to check even trace impurities in water. There will be clear industry uses for this also, he added. Amid political row, JNPCM Umar Abdullah defends order regulating Zakat collection from Srinagar. Bengali author Shankar passes away in Kolkata at 92. Veteran Bengali author Mani Shankar Mukhopadhyay, popularly known as Shankar, passed on Friday at the age of 92. He had been undergoing treatment in a Kolkata hospital for age-related ailments. Gujarat government to amend marriage registration rules according to the norms proposed. Applicants will have to furnish contact details of parents from Ahmedabad. The Gujarat government on Friday announced that it would amend the rules under the Gujarat Registration of Marriages Act, stating that the rule was intended to plug procedural loopholes and prevent alleged misuse of the existing system. PSC pulled up comment for slow implementation of Sankalp scheme. Panel questions government over absence of a central monitoring mechanism and gaps in due diligence. CAG had flagged shortfalls in financial progress from New Delhi. The Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, chaired by senior Congress leader K.C. Venugopal, on Friday criticized the government for what members described as lackadaisical implementation of the skill acquisition and awareness for livelihood promotion scheme, a flagship program of the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. The panel was examining a Controller and Auditor General report that highlighted significant delays and shortfalls in both financial and physical progress under the scheme, according to the CAG only. 44% of the budgeted provision for Sankalp was disused between 2017 to 18 and 2023 for as of October 2023. The audit also flagged weak adherence to implementation guidelines and a sluggish pace of execution across components approved by the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs in October 2017 with a total outlay of 4,455 crore rupees. Sankalp was designed to strengthen short-term skill training through better institutional frameworks, enhanced industry linkage, and targeted inclusion of marginalized communities. General Upendra Trivedi concludes 4-day Australia visit. NHAI likely to discontinue cash transactions at toll plazas. Assam CM betrayed people's trust through corruption, says Priyanka. Rahul appears before court in 2018 defamation case over Shah remarks from Sultanpur UP. Ahead of Prime Minister's visit, Netanyahu calls India a gigantic power from Jerusalem. US Secretary of State to visit India very soon and voices from New Delhi. India took part as observer in the first World of Peace for Gaza meeting, says MEA from New Delhi. Judicial officers to join SIR process in Bengal. US Supreme Court hearts Trump's sweeping tariffs. Please find to use court to impress state said Supreme Court from New Delhi. Chief Justice of India Sreekant on Friday deprecated the tendency of filing petitions to use the Supreme Court as a platform to embrace state governments ahead of assembly elections. The Chief Justice heading three-judge bench said petitions filed by private parties and NGO are designed to put state government in a tight spot. Congress to organize farmers meeting on India-US trade deal. First Kisan Sammelan to be held in Bhopal on February 24. Congress leaders say the pact will adversely affect cotton, soybean, maize and fruit growers from New Delhi. Whole panel dragged back to unity by Supreme Court order, Tribunal says from Kolkata. AI can help India achieve Viksit Bharat goal, but poses high risk to jobs. IMF New Delhi says. PM meets Sri Lankan President discusses areas of cooperation from Colombo. Modi holds talks with UN chief other world leaders from New Delhi. Prime Minister Modi on Friday held bilateral talks with top leaders of Mauritius and Slovakia. Youth Congress workers hold protest at AI summit over US trade deal for arrested from New Delhi. India joined the US-led PAC alliance to build resilient supply chains. The PAC's Silica seeks to build a common supply chain for electronics, critical minerals to withstand disruptions by China. The grouping, which held its inaugural summit 2 months ago, includes Canada, Japan, South Korea, and European Union. News from New Delhi. In final year 27, Life Science said may hire general professionals from Hyderabad. Core sector growth slows to 400 in Jan, cast shadow on IIP from New Delhi. Novartis India prices 20% on 1,446 crore rupees Swiss parent exit from Hyderabad. EU-US trade deals to boost economic growth resident from Mumbai. Government announces 7 additional measures under export promotion mission from New Delhi. Net FDI into India negative for fourth straight month. Reserve Bank of India Data show gross foreign direct investment into India stood at a 5-month high, but was overshadowed by outflows news from New Delhi. SBI talking to Japanese banks for acquisition financing, SEBI said. LIC increases holding in Shikla to 9% in less than 3 months. Ekihoma launches sewage pumps for the Indian market. Indian Americans mostly disapprove of Trump's first year performance. A significant majority of Indian Americans disapprove of US President Donald Trump's first year job performance as per the results of a new survey. Indian Americans in a time of turbulence released on February 19 by the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. However, the disapproval for Mr. Trump's job performance has not translated into gains for the Democratic Party, which, while having stronger support among Indian Americans relative to the Republican Party, is witnessing lower levels of support from this demographic. Just 29% of Indian Americans approved of Mr. Trump's performance, the same proportion compared to 2020. The results are based on 2026 Indian American Attitudes Survey, which surveyed the attitudes of 1,000 Indian American adults between November 25, 2025 and January 6, 2026. The survey data have a margin of error of 3.6% plus minus. In terms of party affiliation, the Democratic Party has seen a decline in support among Indian Americans from 52% 2020 to 48% 2024 and then to 46% 2026. The affiliation to the Republican Party, while on the up from 15% to 19% between 2020 and 2024, has remained at 19% in 2026, more than a quarter or 29% of Indian Americans surveyed identified as independent, up from 23% in 2020 and 25% in 2024, suggesting that the loss to the Democratic Party in support has caused an increase in the share of independents. The Indian American approval rates for Mr. Trump's first year in office are lower. These approval rates are higher compared to all Americans for whom data was collected in a contemporaneous survey by USGOV. Disapproval rates broken down by policy areas. The disapproval rates are 64% for immigration policy, 68% for domestic economic policy, and 70% for international economic policy, trade, tariffs, sanctions. However, there is a sharp contrast across party lines, that is among Indian Americans who are Republicans and those who are Democrats. A large majority of Republican Indian Americans, 76% people approved of Mr. Trump's immigration policies and 62% approved of his international economic policies. Some 84% of Indian American Democrats approved of Mr. Trump's immigration policies and 86% disapproved of his international economic policies. Given the controversies and impact on the Indian American community of the administration, immigration policies, the survey looks at 5 years. Arresting undocumented immigrants who do not have a criminal record, conducting raids at the workplace, deporting immigrants to third countries, actions to end birthright citizenship, and the $100,000 H-1B skilled worker visas fee for new petition. A sizable majority of them take oppose all five categories of policies, while Republicans in general showed no support for each of these, them for immigration policy as a whole. Though a majority of Indian American Republicans for them often then not still supported these individuals' policies. Relations with India, only 20% of Indian Americans approve of Mr. Trump's handling of relations with India, while 55% disapprove. What is noticeable, as per the author says, that a quarter of respondents said not to this question, suggesting the issue of its of limited importance to many Indian Americans. Approval for the handling of the Indian relations was to at 35% in 20 at the end of the first Trump administration and 48% in 2024 at the end of the administration of former President Joe Biden. Between 2024 and 26, younger Indian Americans shifted back to the Democrats as per the Harvey. This is significant given the increased support for Mr. Trump in the November 24 elections from younger Americans, those 50 shifted towards the Republican. Support for the Democratic Party declined significantly among those without a college degree and remained stable for those with a college degree. US wishes to be legitimate targets to attack says Iran. Israeli settlers kill Pakistani and American investor, officials say. As dynamic economies, India, Brazil count remain distant. Poland withdraws from treaty banning anti-personnel mines. Hamas says path for Gaza must begin with end to aggression. Venezuela's National Assembly passes long-awaited amnesty law. Kim laws North Korea's economy and regional standing at party meeting. As dynamic economies, India, Brazil can't remain distant. Bilateral trade between Brazil and India reached its peak in 2025, but it remains far below its true potential, says Brazilian President Lula da Silva, who is accompanied by the country's largest ever business delegation of 600 representatives to Brazil. India Business Forum, highlighting the role of private sector collaboration in driving economic growth. Lula warns against digital colonialism. Brazilian President Lula. Brazil, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva is in India on a 4-day visit with the largest ever delegation, underscoring the momentum in relations between the two countries. In an exclusive interview with the personal President Lula responded to question from Shogun Saxena on a range of issues from strengthening bilateral cooperation to navigating an increasingly uncertain global order excerpts. During your visit to New Delhi, what concrete measures and agreements are expected to deepen and diversify trade between India and Brazil? Bilateral trade between Brazil and India reached its highest level in 2025, but it remains far below its true potential. India has 1.4 billion people and Brazil has 215 billion. It makes no sense for our trade to be only $15 billion. That is why significantly expanding our trade flow is one of the main objectives of this visit. We will sign several agreements to achieve this goal. We will sign agreements on critical minerals, the first of its kind to be signed by Brazil and on small and medium-sized enterprises, a sector that generates millions of jobs. During my visit, I will also take part in the Brazil-India Business Forum with 600 representatives from the private sectors of both countries because it is private sector through partnership and joint projects that will transform the excellent relationship we have with India into shared prosperity for our society. Brazil and India cannot remain distant, two of the world's largest democracies with extraordinarily diverse culture and dynamic economies have an obligation to build a much closer relationship. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and I are working towards that goal. I often say that the answer to the crisis of multilateralism is more multilateralism, and the answer to trade wars is more international trade. Diversifying trade partnerships with both emerging and traditional economies is a central part of Brazilian strategy. In this, we have a strong convergence with India. This convergence now needs to translate into concrete results. We Mercosur have signed a partnership agreement with the European Union less than 2 weeks later. India did the same. We now need to make the expansion of the Mercosur India trade agreement a reality. We have complementary interests in areas such as biofuels, artificial intelligence, science and technology, defense and space industry, and health. We both stand for fair, multilateral, open, and rule-based trade according the World Trade Organization. The futures of Brazil and India are closely linked. You participated in the AI Impact Summit in Delhi. How can Brazil and India lead broader cooperation among global South countries in the field of AI, ensuring equitable access to technology, joint development, and rules that serve their interests? We must avoid a new form of colonialism, digital colonialism. The development of artificial intelligence is irreversible, but it cannot become a privilege of a few countries, nor a tool of manipulation in the hands of billionaires. Brazil and India are interested in and is emancipating artificial intelligence, one that reflects the face of global south, strengthens cultural diversity, and serves as a tool for peace, not war. We need every chip, every girl, hello, every algorithm to carry the mark of social inclusion. To achieve this, we we need intergovernmental governance of artificial intelligence. It is a trend that the United Nations be at the center of this debate and that all states have a seat at the table. Our countries have the conditions to be at the forefront of this agenda as demonstrated by the AI Impact Summit organized by the Indian government. Brazil has emphasized the importance of India's upcoming BRICS presidency in 2026. What are your expectations regarding India's leadership in the bloc? Brazil handed over the BRICS presidency to India in 2026. I am confident that India's presidency will carry forward important Brazilian initiatives for cooperation without the bloc in areas such as health and the fight against socially determined disease, climate change, and artificial intelligence. As for global governance, we are witnessing an unprecedented collapse of multilateralism. The paralysis of the United Nations and its Security Council has contributed to the rise in armed conflicts around the world to levels not seen since the end of the Second World War. BRICS have a very important role to play in this process. The group is a defender of multilateralism and has legitimacy in the debates on a renewed governance in which the voice of the global south carries weight. Brazil and India agree that global governance institutions must reflect the new multipolar reality of the 21st century and effectively promote peace. We are countries that have traditionally advocated reform of the Council. It makes no sense at this stage of the 21st century for the Security Council not to include India, Brazil, and African countries as permanent members. We fully support India's BRICS presidency in advancing these objectives. The long pending Mercosur India trade agreement is expected to be discussed during their visit. Do you see this trip as a decisive moment to advance this paper? When I took office again as president of Brazil at the beginning of 2023, I made a commitment to open new markets and build trade partnerships around the world. In 3 years, we have opened more than 500 markets and Mar- through Mercosur signed important trade agreement with the European Union, EFTA, and Singapore. These agreements are multilateralism's response to protectionism and to the logic of trade wars that impoverish countries and increase inequality. Prime Minister Modi shares a very similar view to ours on the importance of trade agreements. It is in this spirit this as it is in this spirit that expanding the Mercosur India Agreement in since 2009 is one of the priorities of my visit. I thank all my brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, students, scholars, student trainers, professor, professional, officer, officials. I thank respected doctors and directors. I thank all honorable education minister advisor. I thank the most of the world present. Thank you very much. Nice to see all of you.